Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopirana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopirana Vallabha Girivaradhari Shodanandana Bradadana Ranjana Shodanandana Bradadana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhavo Kunja Vihari Radha Madhavo Kunja Vihari Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Harinam Sankirtan ki jai Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai Nandi Hari Bol Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 24th chapter, text number 1.
Prabhu, may I please interrupt? Are you a little distant from your microphone?
Did I come closer to the mic?
If you can, we probably hear you a little better. Thank you.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Vijitashvodirajasit.
Vijitashvodirajasit.
Pritu putra pritu shravaha. Yavi yobhyo dadat kashta. Bratribhyo bratrivatsalaha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Vijitasvo virajasit.
Vijitasvo virajasit.
Pritu putra pritu shravaha.
Pritu putra pritu shravaha.
Yaviyo bhyo dadat kashta.
Yaviyo bhyo dadat kashta.
Bratriro bratrivatsalaha.
Bratribhyo bratrivatsalaha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Vijitashvodirajasit.
Vijitashvodirajasit.
Pritu putrak pritu shravaha.
Pritu putra pritu shravaha.
Yaviyo bhyo dadat kashtha.
Yaviyo bhyo dadat kashta.
Bratribhyo bratrivatsalaha.
Bratribhyo bratrivatsalaha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Vijitashvodirajasit.
Vijitashvodirajasit.
Pritu putra pritu shravaha.
Pritu putra pritu shravaha.
Yavi yobhyo dadat kashta.
Yaviyo bhyo dadat kashta.
Bratribhyo bratrivatsalaha.
Bratribhyo bratrivatsalaha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Vijitasvodirajasit.
Vijitashvodirajasit.
Pritu putra pritu sravaha.
Pritu putra pritu shravaha.
Yaviyo yobhyo dadat kashta.
Yaviyo bhyo dadat kashta.
Bratribhyo bratrivatsalaha.
Bratribhyo bratrivatsalaha. Vijitashvodirajasit.
Vijitashvodirajasit.
Pritu putra pritu shravaha.
Pritu putra pritu shravaha.
Yaviyo bhyo dadat kashta.
Yaviyo bhyo dadat kashta.
Bratribhyo bratrivatsalaha.
Bratribhyo bratrivatsalaha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya continue to speak.
Maitreya continue to speak.
Vijitashvaha.
Vijitashvaha.
Of the name Vijitashva.
Of the
The
name
name Vijitashva.
Adiraja.
Adiraja.
The emperor.
The
The
emperor.
emperor.
Asit.
Asit.
Became.
Became.
Pritu putraha.
Pritu putraha.
The son of Maharaj Pritu.
the son of Maharaj
Prithu,
Pritu Shravaha,
Pritu Shravaha,
of great activities.
of great
of great
activities.
activities.
Yavi Yobhyaha,
Yaviyobhyaha,
unto the younger brothers.
unto the
Unto the
younger
younger
brothers.
brothers.
Adadat,
Adadat,
offered.
offered.
Kashtaha,
Kashtaha,
different directions.
Different
different
directions.
directions.
Ratribhyaha,
Ratribhyaha,
unto the brothers.
unto the brothers.
Ratrivatsalaha,
Ratrivatsalaha,
very affectionate to the brothers.
very affectionate to
affectionate
the
to
brothers.
the brothers.
Okay, so Prabhu, just give me a minute to unmute you. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The great sage Maitreya continued. Vijitasva, the eldest son of Maharaj Prithu, who had a reputation like his father's, became emperor and gave his younger brothers different directions of the world to govern, for he was very affectionate toward his brothers. Purport. After describing the life and character of Maharaj Prithu in the previous chapter, the great sage Maitreya began to speak about the sons and grandsons in the genealogical line of the Prithu dynasty. After the death of Maharaj Prithu, his eldest son Vijitashva became emperor of the world. King Vijitashva was very affectionate toward his younger brothers, and therefore he wanted them to rule different directions of the world. From time immemorial, the eldest son generally becomes king after the death of the previous king. When the Pandavas ruled the earth, Maharaj Yudhisthira, the eldest son of King Pandu, became emperor, and his younger brothers assisted him. Similarly, King Vijitashva's younger brothers were appointed to govern the different directions of the world. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunamitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadhati Swapadantikam Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Ghora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripadamaham Vande Sri Guru Dinotaranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Maitreya Vaja Vijitashvadiraja Sit Prituputra Pritushhravaha Yavibhyobhyo Dadat Kashta Pratribhyo Bhratrivatsalaha. The great sage Maitreya continued. Vijitashva, the eldest son of Maharaj Prithu, who had a reputation like his father's, became emperor and gave his younger brothers different directions of the world to govern, for he was very affectionate toward his brothers. Hare Krishna. With the blessings of all the Vaishnavas. Here in this chapter, we're starting the story of the activities of the Prachetas, and they are descendants of Prithu Maharaj. So here in this verse, we hear about Vichitashva, who is the eldest son of Maharaj Prithu, and he had the same reputation like his father. In other words, he was of the same quality, the same characteristic like Prithu Maharaj. He was fully capable of governing, and thus he was in no respect lesser than his father. He had become fully trained and empowered to carry on the duty of the king. a king's primary duty is to protect his citizens and to make sure that everyone is following their particular dharmas, their particular duties according to their position in the Varnashram system. So Vijitashva, he was doing that. We heard about him in previous verses, how he was the one who was chasing King Indra when he stole the sacrificial horse of Maharaj Prithu. And on several occasions, he was about to kill Indra, but he knew about Indra's exalted position as the king of the Devas, so as such he was not to be killed. So he had a good sense of discrimination. His name is also Antardana because he got awarded the blessing by Indra to be able to disappear at will, because that's one of the qualities of Indra. That's exactly the way how he would steal the horse several times. So he was pleased by Vijitashva's sense of discrimination and respect, and so he awarded him this mystic potency. We can see that in proper culture there is a great sense of respect and service that is offered to the senior, to the superior. And the senior, the superior, is showing affection and guidance and instructions to the junior. So we can see here how Vijitashva, he was not a tyrant, he was not you can say an autocrat who was exploiting his position. Rather, he was very affectionate towards his younger brothers. So that is the main theme, that is the main point here in this verse, that Vijitashva, he installed his brothers as the kings of different directions, and he fully empowered them to carry out their duties of ruling. And he was the emperor, which meant that he was the overall. He would make sure that everyone is doing their job properly, so to speak. So he had great affection and great intimacy and friendship with his brothers. That is something quite outstanding, because in today's world we can see that there's a great mood of competitiveness, of competition, of struggle and strive, that even amongst brothers, even amongst family and friends, even sometimes in spiritual societies, there's a great mood of competition, which can sometimes be detrimental to the development of relationships. So Vijitashva, he saw the need of governing according to Dharma, and he empowered his brothers by giving them suitable service. So when a senior is showing their affection and their guidance, they do so by creating service opportunities for the juniors in a way that they can carry out all the functions, all the responsibilities that the senior would be capable of carrying out, but they choose to delegate and to empower others in that service. We can see this in the case here of Vijitashva. We can also see it very clearly in the case of Srila Prabhupada, who trained and empowered by his potency countless devotees to spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. And that was his great affection, that was his great mercy, and that was a sign of his outstanding quality, because he was not trying to keep things just centered and focused around himself. But he understood that if this movement is to spread, if this movement is to grow, then it will require a practically unlimited amount of preachers, practically an unlimited amount of leaders, and certainly an unlimited amount of devotees. So in a similar way, Vijitashva, he did not just declare himself the single ruler, but he was happy to delegate and empower his younger brothers and to lead them, to guide them. A devotee is happy to play whatever role Krishna wants them to play for his service. And for that purpose, he will take on whatever Krishna has in mind. We can see from the story of Vidura, who was the younger brother of Dhritarashtra, and as such, he had no claims to the throne from a position of seniority, also from a position of social status, because he was a half-brother. Yet Vidura chose to give good advice to not only his elder brother Dhritarashtra, but to all the residents of the court. And as such, he was very much loved and respected, and from others he was very much loathed and hated and rejected by Duryodhana and company. But because of his great love and affection for his elder brother, he did not consider the danger and the political consequences as something that would inhibit him from showing his affection for his elder brother. So much so that everything came to a head and he was ousted from the palace, and he went on pilgrimage for 20 years to return only for one class, with which he empowered his older brother Dhritarashtra to gain some sense and to follow him into the Himalayas and achieve the state of dhira, or a detached person. Dhritarashtra could not become a Narottama, or a topmost spiritual practitioner, because of his enmity, because of his envy against the Pandavas, which is a very important point for us to note. As long as we still have envy or enmity toward Vaishnavas, we cannot become Narottama, we cannot become of the topmost order. So Dhritarashtra harbored enmity in his heart because of nepotism. Nepote in Italian and Latin, it means nephew. And that term was created because the illegitimate sons of priests and even popes, they could not inherit because their fathers were not supposed to have any relations. So they called them nepote, or nephews. So nepotism was to bestow position and favors and duties onto a person who ordinarily would not be qualified. They're illegitimate, but because of favoritism, one is acting in such a way. So Dhritarashtra had this tendency, even though Yudhishthira Maharaj was the firstborn and he was meant to be the king, meant to be the emperor, he favored his own sons, headed by Duryodhana. And he intrigued and contrived to the degree that he tried to kill the Pandavas in several occasions. Speaking of palace intrigues and politics, this is pretty thick. So the Mahabharata is full of these different types of relations. Yet, because Vidura's affection and compassion and service attitude towards his elder brother was unabated. It did not inhibit his affection and his compassion for his elder brother, even though his elder brother misbehaved. In a similar way, even though Indra misbehaved, Vijitashtva still respected him and kept the proper etiquette. That shows to us that even sometimes seniors may misbehave, they may not act properly, but if we keep our respect and our service attitude, then Krishna will ultimately balance everything. He will ultimately make everything come out in a very wonderful, in a very proper way. So, in the story of the Prachetas, there is, just as a little prelude, I know this is coming just a little bit later, was this beautiful verse that I would like to read to you because it's related to this topic here of great friendship and affection. The Prachetas, who are descendants of Prithu Maharaj, they had such a strong bond of friendship and cooperation that Vishnu personally appeared to them. And so, Vishnu is speaking to them. This is also in the 4th canto, 30th chapter, the activities of the Prachetas, text number 8. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear sons of the king, I'm very much pleased by the friendly relationships amongst you. All of you are engaged in one occupation, devotional service. I'm so pleased with your mutual friendship that I wish you all good fortune. Now you may ask a benediction of me." Srila Prabhupada's purport. Since the sons of King Prachinabarishad were all united in Krishna consciousness, the Lord was very pleased with them. Each and every one of the sons of King Prachinabarishad was an individual soul, but they were united in offering transcendental service to the Lord. The unity of the individual souls attempting to satisfy the Supreme Lord or rendering service to the Lord is real unity. In the material world, such unity is not possible. Even though people may officially unite, they all have different interests. In the United Nations, for instance, all the nations have their particular national ambitions, and consequently they cannot be united. This unity between individual souls is so strong within this material world that even in a society of Krishna consciousness, members sometimes appear disunited due to their having different opinions and leaning toward material things. Actually, in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be two opinions. There is only one goal, to serve Krishna to one's best ability. If there is some disagreement over service, such disagreement is to be taken as spiritual. Those who are actually engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be disunited in any circumstance. This makes the Supreme Personality of Godhead very happy and willing to award all kinds of benedictions to his devotees, as indicated in this verse. We can see that the Lord is immediately prepared to award all benedictions to the sons of King Prachinabarishad. So here in these verses we can see how the sign of an advancement of a devotee is actually in how they relate, their relationships with other people. And Vijitashtva is showing this in a very wonderful way. So the Prachetas, they had pleased Vishnu because of their great friendship, and they did service together for 10,000 years. That was quite a long period of time. So they were so much endearing the Supreme Personality of Godhead that Vishnu personally appeared. They had also pleased Lord Shiva, who spoke to them his beautiful prayers. There's a saying that it takes a village to raise a child. And we should think 7 generations ahead to plant trees whose fruits we'll never see or taste. That is the mood, that is the spirit of succession. Srila Prabhupada, he established this International Society for Krishna Consciousness to spread the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all around the world. And for that matter, he empowered devotees to spread the Sankirtan movement. Now, Srila Prabhupada himself was very much older, yet he took the association of his disciples to be his association because there was no God brothers there. So he was taking the association of his disciples to be his Sangha, which is quite unique because normally when we talk of Sangha, we think of, okay, I need people of my background, people of my age group, people of my liking, so to speak. But because Srila Prabhupada had such a magnanimous, such an affectionate, such a visionary nature, he elevated these newcomers to the position of his Sangha. And that immediately empowered these followers to do unlimited things, to spread Krishna consciousness all around the world in a very short amount of time, and to act way above and beyond their ordinary capacity. Today I would like to speak about one of my older brothers who passed away just a few days ago, Brahmananda Puri. He was originally from Yerevan, Armenia. He came to the Krishna consciousness movement in the mid-80s. And when he saw Russian Upanishad, when he saw Srila Prabhupada's picture, he immediately paid his obeisances and he decided to dedicate his life to Srila Prabhupada. Even though he was not from a religious background, he was in communist, atheistic Russia, but he just by seeing Srila Prabhupada's picture on the back of the Upanishad, he decided that this is the person he wants to follow and dedicate his life to. Brahmananda Puri is a family man. He had 6 children. He read in the Upanishad that one should not take any animal products, so he immediately became a vegan, and his whole family had to follow suit. And he started practicing Krishna consciousness. And he is the one, now we can speak about this because he has passed on, he is the one who printed Srila Prabhupada's books in the underground and had them distributed all throughout the former Soviet Union. He was living in a village in Armenia, and for those of you who don't know, in those days you could not even own a typewriter. What to speak of Xerox machine? What to speak of a printing press? But Brahmananda Puri, he went and he obtained an old printing press. He took out the street light, he broke the wall to his house, and he put it in his basement. And he rebuilt the wall, put the street light back, and in his basement he was printing Prabhupada's books. Now, you all know, whatever happens in a village, everybody knows about it. So he was taking great risk. Actually, he would have immediately been executed if people would have found out that he's publishing religious literature and he owns a printing press. That would be enough to send him to a labor camp for 15 years or to have him executed. So as a family person, he took this risk upon himself, and he traveled far and wide to procure paper and ink and get the books printed, and different devotees would distribute them in different regions. Nobody knew each other because there was only 2 or 3 people in the entire former Soviet Union who knew the names of the devotees, just to minimize the risk that if somebody was caught and being pressurized and tortured, that they could not compromise others. So Brahmananda Puri, he started hand printing himself personally the books, and then at great risk he would drive them to different places. He was telling me personally that on several occasions he was apprehended by police or by guards, and as they were checking his documents, he would just run into the woods, and he had to abandon his car and the books and just run for his life. This happened on several occasions. So he was completely fearless, totally dedicated and sold out to the mission of Srila Prabhupada. Then later on, he saw that it was possible to print books with printing houses, but you needed money and goods in order to entice the owners of the printing houses to do the jobs. So he started all types of businesses, all types of trades, just to raise funds to print Prabhupada's books. And he actually single-handedly printed millions of Prabhupada's books. He became so proficient in creating resources that his spiritual master asked him to donate money for buying land in Mayapur. And the majority, practically all of the land that you see now that is ISKCON Mayapur has been bought with money that came from Brahmananda Puri and Brahmika, who was in charge of Prema Invest. They both gave their lives and millions of dollars to buy the land for the Mayapur project. Then later on, when book distribution started taking off and things got a little more open, he arranged for the printing of in 1991 when the BBT sent 250,000 books into Russia. It was the first time that books could be imported, and then they were held in customs in Moscow, and they had demonstrations. Finally, they released them. That's a whole different story. Then with the money that they raised from the sale of that 250,000 books, Brahmananda Puri printed 15 million books. And from those books, all the devotees that you see now in the Soviet Union came. Before 1991, there was maybe 100 devotees in the former Soviet Union. And after that, they printed 15 million books. They distributed those books over the next decade, and now there is hundreds of thousands of devotees. So we can see how by the dedication of one individual who is touched by the affection of Srila Prabhupada, an entire country, an entire continent, the world can change. I feel myself very fortunate because when I came to Krishna consciousness, I was very young. So most of my godbrothers, godsisters, they were like almost 10 years older than me. And I can honestly say I stood on the shoulders of giants. When I came to the Zurich temple in the early 1980s, it was an amazing situation. Because devotees were so absorbed in the mood of preaching, of sharing Krishna consciousness, that my only question was, how can I become like you? How can I be part of your Sangha? How can I take part in your activity? And they said, yeah, that's okay, you just stick around, And they gave me services to do. Okay, you distribute invitation cards, you distribute prasadam, you distribute books. And they gave me service. So it was not like a secret lodge, a secret society of people who think that they're the chosen ones, that no one can do what they're doing. They said, no, everybody can do this. You can do this. Everybody else can do this. Just get people, and they will do it also. Brajananda, one of my friends, was telling me how on Warped Tour, there's a music circuit that happened in North America. At one time, he came back to his boxes of books, and he saw one youngster who was just passing out books. So there was just a concert goer, a teenager. He just saw the books, and he just started distributing them, just started handing them out to people. he didn't ask for donations, but he just started handing out books to people. And he was very enthusiastically doing it. So the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is highly contagious. And when we enter into this mood, into this culture of showing respect and service and receiving affection and advice from our seniors, then the empowerment, Krishna Shakti Vinana Hitara Pravartana, then this empowerment is very strongly present. I wanted to read another verse that I've just read this morning from Gajendra Mokshana, where Gajendra is glorifying the Lord, and he is using the word Bhuri Karunaya, the one who is unlimitedly merciful, and Alayaya, who are never inattentive or idle for the purpose of deliverance. So sometimes we may get a little restless, or let's put it that way, sometimes I get a little restless and impatient, and I think, why are we stuck in this world? Why are we stuck in this situation? And why aren't things moving faster? But Krishna is never idle or lazy in the deliverance of his devotees. In fact, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in the purport to that verse in the 8th canto, is saying that because the Lord had so much eagerness and so much affection and so much concern for his devotee, that he felt that Garuda was not going fast enough. So he jumped off the back of Garuda and was flying through the air, and with his Sudarshan chakra cut off the head of the crocodile. So Krishna is so much concerned and so much interested to deliver his devotee. Now, from our perspective, it may seem like we are stuck here forever. We're trying to bide our time graciously. But how do we do that without becoming impatient and without becoming disturbed by the modes of material nature? We can do that by developing these qualities, these characteristics of showing friendship to all living entities and making intimate friendship with the devotees, and sharing compassion. There's a very beautiful point that Sanatana Goswami is making in his Briya Bhagavatamrita in the story of Gop Kumar, where in one of the purports he's saying that a mind filled with all kind of knowledge can easily become agitated by critical thoughts and is not free to enjoy enthusiasm like the mind of a simple person. So with all our so-called mundane and modern education, we may become overly critical and analytical, and there's too much of thought given in that way. And we may not be free to be enthusiastic, to actually be just a simple and happy devotee. One time I was discussing with a distinguished professor at the GTU, the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, and we were discussing about the book changes, which is not the topic of this class. I'm slightly digressing, but just it's in line of the point here. And so I was telling this professor, who is also a devotee, that I do not speak English and I do not speak Sanskrit, but I speak attitude. And the attitude that I can see in a lot of these discussions is oftentimes about winning an argument, about proving the other person wrong, about establishing my own superiority, about discrediting other devotees' devotional service. And it is very counterproductive. Why? Because it is very unattractive. It is spoiling the sauce. It is ruining the mood. It is not really drawing people in. One of my dear friends, Srisha Prabhu from Moldova, Kishinev, was telling me this morning, he's in Mayapur now with his family, running Vaishnav Academy. So he was telling me that the first time he came to the temple in Moldova, Kishinev, the devotees were so harsh and unfriendly that he didn't visit again for 2 years. After 2 years when he came, there was 2 devotees there from Abkhazia, from Gagra, which is Kafkas, same like Brahmananda Puri, he was from Armenia. So it's the mountainous regions, the Kafkas region. And those 2 devotees were so loving, so friendly, so endearing that they just captured his heart. And after 2 weeks, he moved into the temple. Even though he was attracted to Krishna consciousness, but because the experience was not inspiring, so he stayed away for 2 years. And then when he had a different type of an experience, he was immediately ready to move into the temple. So there's a saying that there is only believers in the trenches. We got a war to fight here, and the war is against Maya. So we need every person, we need every book, we need every opportunity. We cannot let our own personal likes and dislikes jeopardize this movement. In a similar way, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was very much loving and empowering and affectionate to his brothers. He gave them a great deal of support and entrusted different aspects of his rulership to his brothers. So when we see brothers or sisters cooperating in a mood of affection and unity in purpose, then it becomes very endearing, it becomes very convincing, it becomes very attractive. And if that mood, that spirit is not there, and we see brothers and sisters fighting and quarreling and arguing, then it becomes very discouraging and people just want to stay away and they just want to mind their own business. And that means, getting back to our original point, to be satisfied with whatever position or service Krishna has given us. Just like Jamuna Devi, I was just watching her Memories of Srila Prabhupada, how Srila Prabhupada gave her the service of cooking. And she was very honestly, frankly sharing that she had no desire and intention to cook, no attraction to that whatsoever. But because Srila Prabhupada wanted her to do it, she accepted it. Not just accepted it as a chore, but she made it her mission. She made it a priority, to the extent that Srila Prabhupada said Jamuna Devi is the best cook. And that's not something to be taken lightly. Also, she got very much involved with deity worship, and she also took that to a whole other level. She also perfected that to a very, very high standard. It takes simplicity, nirvyalikam, to be without pretension, to have no duplicity, no personal ambition, but to simply be a saralata, a simple-minded, sincere devotee who accepts what is Krishna's plan for me. Now, whether we are younger brothers or older brothers or younger sisters or older sisters, to understand we're in the family. We're in the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we need every devotee, because every devotee is special. So here we have some wonderful example of Vijitashva, who was delegating and empowering his younger brothers for the service of governing the world. And we're studying the Bhagavatam every day in order to see what can I take away from this? What can I imbibe from this? We have all the solutions in the Bhagavatam. So if we study the Bhagavatam together and we pray to Srila Prabhupada that he may please, Dibhagyan Hride Prakashita, he may please give us this divine vision, he may please give us the right mood, the right attitude by which we can imbibe his transcendental teachings, so that we may somehow do something that is pleasing to him. Just about a week ago, I was in Santa Cruz, California, on the farmers market, and there is one man there who's been going there for decades. He just has a small garden, and he just grows herbs, and he bundles them up in little bundles and ties them together with rubber ribbons. And he only has like 5 or 6 different types of herbs and greens and microgreens. And every time I go there, he takes a book and he gives a donation and he gives me some of his produce. And his box where he keeps his money has a big picture of Hanuman on it. So he's 74 years old and he's reading Prabhupada's books. He has read several of them and he's chanting Hare Krishna. So I asked him, what keeps him going? What keeps him coming out here? I mean, he's 74 years old. He could have retired a long time ago. And he basically, in plain English, just told me, this is just my dharma. I just have to do this. This is just my duty. So I showed him Srila Prabhupada's picture, and I said, Srila Prabhupada, he wrote all these books, and he came to the West at the age of 70, and to give this knowledge, to give this culture, to give this wisdom, this opportunity to everybody. So his eyes kind of welled up with tears. And because he's a bhakta of Hanuman, so I told him that just like Hanuman was flying to get the Sanjeevani, the herb, but he brought the whole mountain. So in a similar way, I see like you're growing all these herbs and all these different plants to keep people healthy so they can practice and advance in spiritual life. And he was almost crying. And last time I met him, I gave him the full Bhagavatam set because I thought I knew he was ready. So he took Srimad Bhagavatam, the whole set from Prabhupada. And even though he's way older than I am, because he saw that I had respect and service attitude, his heart opened. And even though he's pretty conservative and elderly gentleman, his heart opened up and a lot of emotions and affection came out, and he was very, very touched by this gesture. So it's wonderful to see how Srila Prabhupada's movement is touching the hearts of countless living entities. And in these days of great opportunity, we can call them great days of crisis or great days of opportunity, people are very much open to hear the message of Krishna consciousness, because when there is suffering, there is a great opportunity. So I humbly beg and like to encourage each and every one of you in this holiday season, please carry some books of Srila Prabhupada with you and share them with others. You may gift them. People may contribute. They may donate. In whichever way, somehow get this loving exchange going. And Krishna will perform the miracle. He will perform the magic. We'll see how people who seemed to be just regular average people are actually stepping up their game and they want more. They want Krishna consciousness. They want spiritual guidance, because it is the nature of the soul that we can only be happy in devotional service. We can only be satisfied in our eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Krishna, when he was in Gurukul with his friend Sudama, they were going out into the forest to collect firewood, to serve Sandipani Muni, their guru, their teacher. And even though they were from different backgrounds, they exhibited unconditional friendship towards each other. And that makes a very important point, that if you want to have unalloyed friendship, there has to be a mood of equality. It cannot be that we have a great sense of superiority or a great sense of inferiority, but there has to be a mood, a spirit of equality. Of course, there's culture, there is respect, and there is understanding. Like Sudama, he knew his friend is very exalted, is the Supreme Lord. But at the same time, his mood of friendship, his mood of friendship was predominant, and that was very pleasing. That was so much attractive to Krishna that Krishna forcibly snatched some of that flat rice that Sudama's wife had begged from a neighbor and ate it. Without even being offered that rice, because Sudama thought that this is too puny, this is too unworthy. Yet Krishna was so much attracted by the love and the friendship that he forcibly took that gift from his friend's hand. So these are some of the reflections, some of the points that come to my mind when I read this verse, and I would humbly like to ask you for comments or corrections or questions. Hare Krishna.
Okay, just a moment. Let me unmute everybody.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Navina Nirada.
Folder, there's when I move the cursor there's a box that I can click, right? So it's clicked. Is that right?
Can you mute?
Okay. All right, I think we're all set.
Okay. Navina Nirada Prabhu, thank you so much for your lovely class. When you were, a little confession, when you began telling the story of Brahmananda Puri, you mentioned how when he saw Srila Prabhupada's picture, he immediately offered his obeisances. And I was thinking, oh, come on, where's this story going to go? It's one of these hyperbole stories that I'm a little skeptical about, well-intended but overstated. But as you went on and described Brahmananda Puri and all that he had done, I realized now it all made sense. It seemed pretty clear to me that he must have been a devotee in his past life and was just coming to assist in this movement. What a special, amazing soul. So you made it really clear to me. Maybe it's almost like when Gadadhar first saw, what was it?
Pundarik Vidyanidhi.
Pundarik Vidyanidhi. He thought, oh, come on, what's all this opulence that he's absorbed in? But then he later saw it was all later revealed to him exactly how exalted this great personality was. So it's really nice how you revealed that all. Because at first I was very skeptical that somebody just sees Prabhupada's picture and immediately offering obeisances. But no, it all made sense. That was a great story. And I liked how you were describing this, right, really following the verse so nicely, how the seniors hand down the potency and the service to the youngers, just like it was the Vijayatasva. He became empowered, of course, by his father, and then though he was a senior brother, not at all taking advantage, but so nicely engaging his younger brothers and seeing them all flourishing so much in spiritual life. So when I was just sitting back at just a certain point in the class, I was busy doing some deity service, just sat back listening to you speak, and was just seeing how it just gives me great faith in our process, in our movement, that we just follow what Prabhupada gave us and hand down that, seeing the future generations like yourself speaking so articulately and so powerfully, that it's incredibly enlivening to me to hear you speak and see how this actually works. And anyway, I just want to thank you so much for your class. Very, very enlivening.
Hare Krishna, thank you for your comments.
Navina Nirada, Prabhu. I also want to really express my gratitude for your class. It was so relevant to the verse that it's not like you just rattled about something, whatever, but it really brought out the meaning of the verse to our own lives in a very practical way. I wanted to ask you something. Bhaktivedanta Swami, on one lecture, he was talking about different things, devotees that had spearheaded the movement in the Soviet Union. And he told the whole story about your brother. I had no idea that's who he was. He didn't mention a name because this was several years ago. So maybe, they were not allowed to speak who was.
Because he was still alive, and you didn't want to compromise him in any way because of the circumstances.
So I was amazed when I first heard him describing about these devotees in the former Soviet Union, people that my wife didn't even know about because she's from the former Soviet bloc. He told one story that, not in the same details that you did, but Bhaktivedanta Swami was saying that one time some KGB agents had come because there was suspicion about the underground printing press. And then two Matajis came out and started screaming at him, and they were so forceful that the KGB agents had turned around and left.
Yeah, that's a fact. In fact, one girl, she jumped one of the people who came and jumped on him, even though the guy was guarded, so they thought that these ladies are completely nuts, they're totally crazy. But they were so preoccupied with those ladies that they forgot all about searching that house. So Brahmananda had escaped through the window and he took off, and so they got so confused that they didn't even search the house and found the printing press.
That is amazing. Absolutely.
There's a lot more to this, but again, always the tip of the iceberg, and I don't want to venture off the topic or get into sensationalism, but there's a lot of people who risk their lives and who have done tremendous sacrifice to print and distribute the books and raise the funds for that matter and to contribute to the Mayapur project. So Krishna knows, and that's what counts. They were certainly not trying to get any credit for it or show off, because quite to the contrary. And as I've mentioned, they didn't even know the names of each other oftentimes because it was too dangerous. So everybody just did the task that they were allocated to. And in this way, things were going quite nicely.
Now, I was told that some devotees, they would carry around boxes of vodka because that was the only thing that they could like bribe the people at the borders with.
Oh, bribing was just part of daily life, you know. I mean, whatever it takes. Those owners of printing presses, if you wanted to entice them, whether it be cars or refrigerators or video cameras or whatever it was, vacation packages, that's whatever it took to get the job done. There was no thought, because it was very clear that this mission is so important that we cannot wait for things to unfold, because there's just simply no time. So there's a great sense of urgency, there's a great sense of dedication, and that also led to great risk-taking. And of course, some people gave their lives, and they're not here today. So we are very, very much indebted and very much touched by their sacrifice and surrender. Me personally, I went there from 1991 till a few years ago, so I visited the former Soviet Union, mainly Russia, for 25 years about. But I came when things were already pretty much established and moving. So it was still very endearing and very inspiring to associate with these devotees and see how their enthusiasm, their dedication, and their surrender is very contagious. And now, of course, it's a different era, it's a different epoch. There's a different type of people who come and get exposed to the movement. But that's always understood that there's a time for everything. Initially, it's the pioneers. They established the beachfront, and then the settlers, and then there is, you know, the ones who build the infrastructure. Then there's the immigration of all kinds. So that's just. But if somehow we can connect to that mood of sincerity and simplicity and faith, that I'm happy to play the role that Krishna has given me, and I'm not trying to point blame or trying to be somebody else, but I'm just trying to serve to the best of my capacity in a mood of gratitude and cooperation, and then with full faith that Krishna will appreciate and recognize and reciprocate. Then wonderful things can happen even today. So I don't want to say that the revolution is over and the magic already happened, but it is happening as we speak in different, wherever the devotees are sincerely trying to extend themselves to share the message and serve the mission of their spiritual master.
Would you ever consider writing a book or something in order to record all these different amazing things that have happened?
There are different people in different places who will do that. I'm working on a book on Sankirtan right now, where I put some of the stories in there. But it's sometimes hard because there's always a tendency to digress and to get too caught up in the story and to kind of lose it and go off tangent. And so it's a difficult task for somebody as unqualified as myself. Also, I have just visited briefly, as I've mentioned. I think it's best if the locals do it. I know there's one devotee in Moscow who's writing a book. He has already published the first part in Russian about the history of the development of the Hare Krishna movement in the Soviet Union. So I can just count myself as a fortunate individual who got a lot of affection and was allowed to do a little bit of service. So Brahmananda Puri, he was so magnanimous. It was unbelievable. He hosted devotees. It's like Tukaram, you know. He just gave everything away, even his last shirt. He had 6 children. Everything he owned, everything he earned, he always gave it away. So even now, his family is quite destitute, and because he just gave everything to Krishna all the time. So it's quite special. It's quite interesting to see how Krishna he interacts with his intimate devotees in very special ways.
Okay, anybody else have anything? Okay, well, if not, it was an amazing class. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Excellent class. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and I pray that you may give me your affection and empowerment and guidance so that I can do some small service for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada and his followers. Grantharat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai. Vanchakalpatarupasya Hare Krishna.